Thank you for joining us in this special presentation. You're watching the annual Beaver, Pennsylvania Memorial Day Parade. Up ahead is the Color Guard. Front and center, reenacting American history.
Where you going, bud?
A lot of those people who represent foreign wars, and of course reenacting more American history. There's such a large crowd. I wanted everyone to get a chance to see how many people attended the Memorial Day Parade here in Beaver County. And veterans that represent all foreign wars. If you're in the Beaver County area, there's a Support the Troops rally June 10th, 2017 at the Gazebo. part of the parade, more preserving American history. I think most people can agree this is our favorite part of the parade. I got a chance to talk to several people as we watched the Cub Scouts and Brownies representing Beaver County. It's really a nice afternoon. What a way to celebrate and kick off summer 2017. Sweet. I love that. Again, the crowds were so large. There were so many people. And you could see just from the angle, I had to take a couple different shots of just how many people were around me. It was really a nice morning and afternoon.
Put his feet in it. He's not pushing it.
And representing the Boy Scouts of America here locally, and more of the Cub Scouts and Brownies. And of course, don't forget our first responders. It was a very wonderful morning and afternoon, spending it with the people around us in our community here in Beaver County. If people lose sight of what allows you to have a parade, you can't think in context like that, because the theater war is far different than what you're seeing here at a parade. But if it hadn't been for those missions, and for people that really stood up for freedom and liberty, we would not be having a parade like this. Or this, I think America has one opportunity here to make this happen, and we did, and we have to keep doing it now. We can't just slack off now. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to watch this broadcast of this parade here in Beaver County. Up next, we have more in the ceremony. And I have a special interview coming up next here at the Field Report.
Well, we're wearing basically period clothing for the time. This would be normal standard attire for a civilian. So what I'm wearing is called a frock coat right here. This is basically the era back then. This would have been equivalent to modern day normal suit jackets. So normal sports coats, any type of normal suit jacket you'd wear to an occasion, this is equivalent to that. They wore normally these vests that had normally either metal buttons. They didn't have plastic buttons yet. So they had either metal buttons or wooden buttons. Their vests always had lapels. They believed it was more formal. If you took off your jacket, you'd still have something underneath that would still be equivalent at least, but people weren't supposed to take their jackets off back then. Actually, if you were wearing your jacket, it was part of your attire. Now, my shoes aren't actually accurate right now, but they would have worn something kind of like this. They would have worn a shoe that is kind of just real simple, nothing too crazy, nothing too extravagant, just a real simple shoe. The pants would have just been, I don't have my correct ones on, but they would have been high-waisted, so up to here, and you would have always wore your suspenders. Every clothes would have been made with about wool or cotton. They didn't really have any of the crazy fabrics we have now. They had silk, they had things like that. Their shirts, a lot of times they didn't have the modern the modern collar. They always had these wing collars, which are now only reserved for formal occasions normally. Or they had straight collars, which were a very big favorite. A straight collar that was normally high, up to here about. They always wore these. This is called an ascot. Basically, it's just like the modern day tie kind of came from this. People still wear these, but very rarely. Normally now they're worn inside the shirt, but back then they were worn outside and they were tied like this or in another type of knot that's called, I can't remember the name of the knot though, but it basically looks kind of like a tie, but only a real sloppy one almost. Now, another thing is they didn't normally wear belts. Their pants were normally fitted perfectly, their vests were normally fitted right around, and their coats were always fitted. These coats were made to kind of look like an hourglass. So you would kind of have your chest and they went down into your waist and then would spread out some. This coat is actually a remade version. This is a modern version, but it looks just like its old-time equivalent. Now their shirts normally all the time had cufflinks, so I'm wearing cufflinks. These would be about period accurate.
Mm-hmm. Those are actually very similar, or are those replicas?
They are very similar. They're not, I don't know if they're actually like replicas, but they're very similar. Now, I normally wear glasses. I'm wearing contacts. However, their glasses of the time, if you had glasses, they would have been a small kind of round or a small kind of ovalish. And they were always real small wire metal frames. Other part of their attire on normal day wear is top hats. They always wore top hats, a bowler hat, or in some other form such as a slouch hat, maybe pretty much any type of hat that you wear now in a formal occasion.
And that was typical for the men. This was an everyday. This wasn't formal.
This wasn't formal.
What we do today is considered formal. This was the everyday attire.
So formal nowadays they consider just, a suit or maybe a nice tux with satin lapels. Back then, formal for them was full-on white tie. So the white bow tie, wing-collared shirt, white vest with lapels that comes down to about around here. Black, always black with satin lapel tailcoat, and then the corresponding tuxedo pants that normally had, such as this, either 2 stripes or 1 single stripe down the side.
So formal was all white instead.
All white and just black. You wanted to have as little color basically. Now if you were a representative of a state or so, as they still do today, they wore a sash underneath that had like their colors on it, or they'd wear pins and stuff.
Very nice.
And different medals, things like that. Now what she's wearing is basically, this would be a kind of a
tons
mourning
of layers.
Yeah, there were tons of layers.
There were 3 stages of mourning. This would be the latter where you didn't have to wear a veil and you could wear some white. And then the very later stage they would wear like the whole half top up top would be white and then black on the bottom still. There's a lot of layers. You have your shoes. You have socks that go clear up above your knees because you weren't allowed to show your ankles.
Yeah.
There's bloomers. And then I have 2 petticoats.
Wow.
And women.
And that always kept the dress from pulling out because of the way it was made too.
Yeah, most of the women, the working women, they didn't wear a hoop skirt.
Oh,
when they dressed up more, they would have had, I don't have a hoop skirt, but normally you would have had a hoop skirt on underneath as well.
Mm.
But the working women just wore like 2 to 3 petticoats under.
And this was the 3rd stage of mourning.
Yeah, kind of, like in between the 2nd and the 3rd, where you would start to wear some white, no veil over your face.
So there's a lot of meaning behind. As much as people look at our clothes today, there's meaning behind that, but it hasn't changed. There's still meaning. It's just.
Don't forget that back then women always wore corsets.
Yeah,
you were kind of
required.
Corset
on up here.
So yeah, and they can be tight.
And you wore like a nightgown garment under your corset to keep it clean, and then you wore another shirt over top of the corset to keep it clean as well. Now, because you couldn't wash your
you
corset.
Can't wash your corset. Now, also your corset is basically acts as your bra nowadays.
Yeah.
Your corset was basically just that. They had kinds with a cup model and they had kinds without. But either way, formal events, everything, women always wore them. They always wore all that underneath their dress. And your socks were like always required to be that high.
Mm-hmm.
Women always wore their hair up. The only person that was allowed to see them with their hair down would be their husband.
Mm-hmm.
So they always wore it up. Sometimes they wore a snood over, and then the hats.
Actually, there's a lot of traditions that are still trying. They want to bring that back, but with veiling the hair, which is not a new tradition like what we see with the burqas. It's not a new tradition. Wearing your hair for only your husband was a common tradition. And I think there's a lot of religions that are trying to resurrect that. But this was a normal, as you say, this was normal.
Yes. Another thing, like I
wearing
was
your hair back
earlier, that I kind of just touched on a little bit. Men weren't really supposed to be seen in public without their coats on. If you weren't wearing your coat, your outfit wasn't complete. Now, men always did wear vests. You wouldn't go out of the house without your vest on. Or, well, they're actually called a waistcoat normally in that time, but you wouldn't go out of the house without that on. You were to be seen then as kind of like the only people who sometimes wouldn't wear a vest would be working class. Farmers would sometimes just wear their shirt and stuff and their suspenders, but they always had that on. Now, normally though, like I said, this is every day, so you're going out every day wearing this and stuff, and it wasn't until after around the Civil War a little bit, or right at the Civil War, did they start developing or start the true jackets that we wear now. So the sport coats, or as you'd say, just a normal suit jacket, that was just kind of starting right at this time period. If you see a lot of the Civil War guys that we were walking with, they actually wore those, because that was they normally got one coat, and it was a frock coat at first. Theirs had 9 buttons on the front and a standing collar. They were about down to right above your knees. They normally had blue piping around the cuffs. They had it up here, and sometimes they'd have a fancy design on the front if they were a musician or so. Now, under their uniforms, you don't realize, but they're wearing the same thing. High pants, normally up to right about where your belly button would start, and then suspenders. Their shirts normally weren't white. They were normally just a plaid color, because a lot of the time during this time, fabric was, men would need shirts constantly and stuff, so their wives were actually sewing. They only got so much supplied by the army before they ran out. They only got one standard frock coat, I believe 1 pair of blue pants, and then if it went bad, you had to kind of speak to your wife somehow, write to her or so. And
that's why you always treated your wife very well, because she did all the legwork, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how it is?
Yeah, kind of. And there's a lot of history behind not just the uniforms. There's a lot of history behind anything back then. Just the way that people acted, the way people talked. For us right now, we try not to use slang words today. Like, I know a big one, like around here, Pittsburgh, yins and stuff. We can't use something like that. We need to speak proper. Right. Because, well, we need to kind of carry ourselves. Right. We want to look as authentic as possible. We want to look as if you almost like, whoa, did I just walk into the 18th century?
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know all the specific details either, but a lot of times the women would change like different ways they wore their hair, different things that they wore as to whether they were single, if they were married, different things like that. The girls, they didn't have to completely, like the younger teens and things, they could wear their dresses higher. The younger they were, the higher the dress they could wear. As they got older, they had to wear a longer dress, and then into adults, you had to wear to cover your ankles.
It's amazing. I'm so thankful for taking the moment to listen to your story.
No problem.
I love this whole holiday experience from now to 4th of July. If we get to see more of this, it makes it really brings history to life.
We're part of the 63rd Volunteer Infantry. We are just civilians at the moment, but we do not just do Civil War. We do some World War II, some Vietnam. We do some World War I. Wow. And then we even have a member or two that are actually modern, currently serving. And they'll have sometimes the modern uniforms and stuff, and you can learn all about the time.
What, can you give us your address, information where you would, could they find you online? Like, is there an internet
online,
link?
It's just, I don't know how exactly the web page is right now, but there is a Facebook page. Okay. I can give you that. The Facebook page is just, here, I can find it. It's basically just 63rd Volunteer Infantry. Oh, by the way, this was not standard.
No. iPhones. Well, we're gonna let it slide, because this is, I know people would travel very far to see a replication or any kind of reenactment.
Here is the Facebook page. It's 63rd Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry Regiment, You can message, and there's normally an about. Right now, here's the website right there, 63rd rdpvi.com. And now we are a nonprofit organization. Basically, we just meet. We have quite a bit of members, but not many show up to our
Where are
things.
you located? Like, you're not from Pennsylvania. Are you Ohio?
No, we're from Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
We're right
We're
over in
Beaver
Beaver County.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're here in Beaver County.
You're in the area?
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for
no
taking
problem.
your time to do this, because
You're very welcome.
I volunteered in the military, but this to me is way better. To meet people that still everyday patriotism like this. This is your way of expressing patriotism, because you want to keep our history alive, and I want to thank you for that.
You're very
You know, and especially on a holiday
you're
like
very
today.
welcome. No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Thank you for joining us in this very special Memorial Day broadcast. We hope you have a very safe and happy Memorial Day holiday. Thank you for listening to this special broadcast here at Planet Radio. We have a lot of things up next here this summer. You want to stay tuned for that. I'm formerly a host at 103.3 FM and 1370 AM, Charlotte, North Carolina, so I look forward to doing many more broadcasts this summer. Do you believe in second chances? Well, we do. Please support We Are Jordan Strong. Your digital escape awaits August 6, 2017. A special theater production coming this August 6th at Hot Summer Nights in Beaver, Pennsylvania. You can listen to Miss Deja Vu here regularly at Planet Radio. The Moonlight Lounge at Planet Radio is a part of the Amateur Radio Network. This student project is publicly supported. If you would like to donate to our cause, look for the information in the description box below.